My parents think you're a downgrade from my ex. I don't want to make them uncomfortable, she said after I asked why I wasn't invited to her sister's wedding. I said, I see, and let it go. Packed my things and left while she was at the wedding. A few hours later, her father called me confused. Hey viewers, before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want more stories like this. Thanks. You never realize you're just a placeholder until the person you've been holding the spot for finally shows up. For 2 years, I thought I was the hero of Sarah's story. I believed I was the guy who came in after the storm, the one who rebuilt everything, fixed the foundation, and made it safe again. But looking back, I wasn't the hero. I was just the contractor. And once the renovations were finished, she didn't need the guy with the tool belt anymore. She wanted the guy who threw the parties. I met Sarah at a low point in her life. She was 26, buried in credit card debt, and emotionally wrecked from a 3-year on-and-off relationship with a guy named Todd. She called Todd a visionary. In reality, he was a 30-year-old aspiring club promoter who borrowed money he never repaid, cheated on her constantly, and made her feel like she was lucky just to be around him. When he finally left her for an 18-year-old Instagram model, Sarah fell apart. Then I came in, Mark the systems analyst. I was everything Todd wasn't. Stable. Consistent. I paid my bills on autopay. I didn't vanish for 3 days on some networking trip to Miami. When Sarah and I started dating, she told me I was a breath of fresh air. She said she was done with drama, the highs and lows, the toxicity. She wanted peace, and I gave her peace. I helped her get her finances in order. I co-signed on her car, refinanced to bring her interest rate down from a predatory 18% to something manageable. When she decided to go back to school to finish her marketing degree, I covered the rent so she could focus entirely on her classes. I wasn't just her boyfriend, I was the infrastructure of her life. But there's a funny thing about peace. If you're used to chaos, peace can start to feel like boredom. The shift started about 6 months ago. Sarah finished her degree and landed a solid job at a PR firm. She looked better than ever, working out, dressing sharp, carrying herself with a confidence I hadn't seen before. I was proud of her. I thought we were doing great. Then the comments began. At first, they were small. We'd be watching a movie and she'd sigh. I wish we did things like that. Spontaneous things. We went to Cabo last month, I'd remind her. Yeah, but we planned it, Mark. It was on a spreadsheet. That's not the same as just going. Then it got more personal. She started taking subtle shots at my job. You stare at screens all day. Don't you ever want to build something? Create something? I build networks that keep hospitals running. Sarah, I'd say, trying to keep it light. She'd just roll her eyes. You know what I mean? It's just so sterile. Everything came to a head the week of her sister Emily's wedding. It was the event of the year for her family. Emily was marrying into a wealthy, old money, country club type of family. Sarah was the maid of honor, and she was terrified something would go wrong. She became obsessed with appearances. She wanted to prove to her family, and maybe to herself, that she wasn't the messy sister anymore. She had her life together. She had the job. She had the job. She had stability. I assumed I was part of that image. I wanted to look the part, so I went out and spent $600 on a tailored charcoal suit. I got a fresh haircut and had my car detailed so we'd show up looking sharp. I was ready to be the arm candy she needed, the proof that she'd moved on from guys like Todd, the kind who'd wear ripped jeans to a funeral. 2 nights before the wedding, I walked into the living room wearing the suit. I just picked it up from the tailor. What do you think? I asked, adjusting the cuffs. Does the tie work? Sarah was sitting on the couch, her phone in hand. When she saw me, her thumb froze mid-scroll. She didn't smile. She didn't say, "You look great." She looked strained. "It's fine," she said tightly, glancing back at her phone. "It's very you." "What does that mean?" "I don't know, Mark. It's safe. It's a gray suit. It's what an accountant wears. I'm an analyst, but okay," I said, slipping off the jacket. The comment stung, but I swallowed it. She was stressed, wedding pressure. I let it go. "So what's the plan for Saturday?" I asked. "The ceremony starts at 4, so I figured we leave by 2. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she locked her phone and set it face down on the coffee table. A heavy silence filled the room, the kind that pulls the air right out of your lungs. She started picking at a loose thread on a pillow, avoiding my eyes. "Mark, about the wedding," she began, taking a deep breath like she was about to step into cold water. "I've been talking to my mom." "Okay, Is everything all right with Emily? Emily is fine, she said quickly. It's the guest list. It's tight. And honestly, my parents have been making some comments lately. I frowned. I actually liked her parents. Her dad, Robert, and I got along well. We watched football together, talked about cars. I'd even helped him set up his home Wi-Fi mesh system. I'd never felt any kind of tension from them. Comments about what? I asked, sitting down in the armchair across from her. She finally looked at me and her eyes held a strange mix of pity and irritation. About you and Todd. My stomach dropped. I hadn't heard that name in 2 years. Todd? Why are they talking about Todd? Because Todd was memorable, Mark, she said, her tone sharpening. He had charisma. He lit up a room. My parents, especially my mom, they miss that energy. They think you're a great guy. They really do. But they think you're a bit of a safe choice. A rebound? A rebound, I repeated, the word tasting like ash. We've been living together for 2 years, Sarah. I'm not a rebound. That's how they see it, she snapped, throwing her hands up defensively. Look, I'm just telling you what they said. They think going from Todd to you is a shift. A downgrade in personality. They think you're boring, Mark. There. I said it. The word hung in the air. Downgrade. So, she continued, her voice dropping into a harsh whisper. I don't want to put you in a situation where you're uncomfortable. I don't want you sitting there all night knowing they're comparing you to him. It's going to be awkward. For my sake and honestly for yours. I think it's better if I go alone. I sat there frozen. The logic made no sense. If her parents thought I was boring, the answer wasn't to hide me. It was to bring me and let me show up as a normal, respectful partner. But the way she looked at me, like I was a flaw in her otherwise perfect image, left me unable to respond. You're uninviting me, I said flatly. To your sister's wedding, where I'm the maid of honors +1. I'm protecting you, she insisted, standing up and grabbing her phone again. God, why do you have to make everything so difficult? I'm trying to spare your feelings. My mom is going to be drunk and critical, and I can't deal with managing your insecurity on top of my maid of honor duties. My insecurity. I see, and I did see, not what she wanted me to see. Not a girlfriend protecting me from judgmental parents. I saw a woman who was ashamed of me. I saw someone who had rewritten the past, turning a toxic, unemployed loser into a charismatic legend, and the man who helped rebuild her life into a boring downgrade. Fine, I said. My voice was calm, too calm. She blinked, surprised by how easily I gave in. Really? Yeah. If your parents think I'm a downgrade, I shouldn't be there. You go. Have fun. Do your duty? She let out a deep sigh of relief, her shoulders dropping. She walked over and kissed me on the cheek. It felt like a betrayal all on its own. Thank you for understanding, Mark. You're really sweet. This is why we work. You're so logical. Yeah, I said, looking at the gray suit draped over the chair. Logical. She spent the rest of the night in a frenzy, packing her bag, texting nonstop. She told me she was staying at a hotel near the venue the night before to help Emily prepare. I'll see you Sunday morning, she said the next afternoon as she dragged her suitcase to the door. Love you. Bye, Sarah, I replied. The door clicked shut. I listened as her footsteps faded down the hallway. I waited until I heard the elevator ding. Then I walked to the window and watched her get into an Uber. She wasn't alone. From 3 stories up, I couldn't make out every detail, but I saw a man lean out of the back seat to help the driver with her bag. He wore a flashy leather jacket. He had that distinct, bouncy walk of someone who believes all. Eyes are on him, Todd. I stood there for a long time, my hand resting against the cold glass. She hadn't uninvited me to protect me from her parents. She had uninvited me to protect me from her parents. She had uninvited me because she was bringing him. The anger didn't come like an explosion. It came like a cold front. It froze everything. I turned away from the window and looked around the apartment. My apartment. The TV I bought. The console I played on. The couch I paid for. The silence was overwhelming, but for the first time in 2 years, it didn't feel peaceful. It felt like a message. Downgrade, I whispered into the empty room. I walked into the bedroom, pulled my duffel bag from the closet, and started opening drawers. I wasn't going to be here when she got back, and neither was the Wi-Fi password. I didn't trash the place. I didn't slash her tires or cut up her clothes. That's what Todd would have done. That's what a chaotic person does. I'm an analyst. I don't create chaos. I remove the support structures that allow a system to function. I gave myself 2 hours. First, the essentials. I packed my clothes, toiletries, and documents into 3 suitcases. I emptied the safe, passport, birth certificate, and the emergency cash stash I had contributed 90% to. Then the tech. This was where it would hurt her most. I unplugged the 65-inch OLED TV I'd bought for our anniversary. I boxed up my PS5. I took the Sonos speakers from the living room, bedroom, and kitchen. But the real kill switch was connectivity. I walked to the corner of the living room where the fiber optic modem and high-end mesh router sat. I paid the bill. The account was in my name. I unplugged the router, wrapped the cord neatly around it, and slipped it into my backpack. In seconds, the apartment went from a smart home to a dumb box. The smart lights shut off. The thermostat went offline. Alexa went silent. The streaming say. Our visas logged out. I stood in the middle of the living room. It wasn't empty. Her furniture, decorations, and clutter were still there, but it felt hollow. It looked exactly like what it was, a space she couldn't afford, filled with things she hadn't earned. I placed my house key on the kitchen counter. No note, no explanation. A note suggests there's still a conversation to be had. Leaving the key means the conversation is over. I took the elevator down to the garage, loaded my car, and drove to a Marriott downtown. I checked in, went up to my room, and sat on the edge of the bed. It was 4:30 p.m. The ceremony would be starting right about now. I pictured her walking down the aisle as maid of honor, wearing that practice smile. Todd sitting in the crowd in his cheap suit, probably already sweating through his shirt. I imagined her parents looking at him, confused, wondering where I was. I ordered a whiskey from room service and waited. The silence was heavy, but it wasn't the silence of loneliness. It was the silence of a bomb technician who had finally cut the right wire. The timer had stopped. I was safe. At 7:15 p.m., my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I looked at the screen. Robert. Sarah's dad. I let it ring 3 times. I needed to steady my voice. I needed to sound like I had no idea what was happening. I answered. Hello, Mark? Oh, thank God. Robert's voice was shaking. He sounded breathless, like he'd stepped outside to escape a fire. Mark, are you okay? Are you at the hospital? I frowned, sitting up straighter. The hospital? No, Robert, I'm at a hotel. What are you talking about? There was a pause on the other end. Thick. Confused. A hotel. Sarah told us. She said you collapsed. That you had some kind of seizure or heart issue right before you were supposed to leave. She said you made her go to the wedding because you didn't want to ruin Emily's day, and that you were under observation. My grip tightened around the phone. The sheer audacity of the lie took my breath away. She hadn't just lied to cover herself. She had weaponized my health to make herself look like a brave martyr, pushing through while her boyfriend was in the ER. Robert, I said, my voice cold. I didn't have a seizure. I'm perfectly healthy. I don't understand, Robert stammered. Then why aren't you here? Why is Todd here? Todd is there, I asked, feigning surprise. Is he sitting at my table? He's sitting in your seat, eating your steak, Robert snapped, confusion turning into anger. He showed up with her. She said she needed emotional support because she was so worried about you. Mark, what the hell is going on? I took a sip of the whiskey. It burned, grounding me. Robert, Sarah uninvited me yesterday, I said calmly. She told me that you and her mother thought I was a downgrade compared to Todd. She said my presence would make you uncomfortable because I'm boring next to him. She said she was doing you a favor by leaving me home. What? Robert roared, the sound distorting through the speaker. A downgrade? Mark, I can't stand that greasy, sniveling excuse for a man. He borrowed $500 from me 3 years ago and never paid it back. I tried to get security to throw him out, but Sarah started crying about how she needed him. Well, I said, she has him now, and she doesn't have me anymore. What do you mean? I moved out, Robert. I packed my things while she was at the ceremony. I'm done. The lease is up in 2 months. I'll cover my share until then, but I'm not coming back. I could hear the wedding in the background, muffled bass from the DJ, clinking glasses, laughter. It sounded like another world. Mark, don't do this, Robert pleaded, his voice dropping. She's an idiot. You know how she gets when she's stressed. I'll go get her right now. I'll drag her out by her ear if I have to. Just come down here. We can fix this. There's nothing to fix, Bob. I said gently. I actually felt bad for him. He was losing the only normal guy his daughter had ever dated. She didn't just cheat on me. She looked me in the eye and told me I wasn't good enough for her family just so she could sneak her ex in. That's not stress. That's character. I'm going to kill him, Robert muttered, and I heard movement. I'm looking at him right now. He's trying to network with Emily's father-in-law. He's handing out business cards for a club that closed 6 months ago. I let out a short, dry laugh. Classic Todd. Mark, please. Robert tried one last time. I'm sorry, Robert. Enjoy the wedding. Tell Emily, congratulations. And tell Sarah. I paused, searching for the right words. Tell Sarah that, since I'm such a downgrade, I removed myself from the equation. She can upgrade to Todd full-time now. Mark, goodbye, Robert. I hung up. I stared at the phone for a moment, then powered it off completely. I walked to the hotel room window and looked out at the city lights. There was a strange feeling in my chest. It wasn't heartbreak. It wasn't anger. It was relief. The anchor was gone. The weight had lifted. I didn't know exactly what was happening at that reception hall 10 miles away, but I understood the mechanics of Sarah's life better than she did. I had just removed the load-bearing wall. Gravity would handle the rest. I kept my phone off for 24 hours. Sunday was quiet. I slept in. I went for a long run along the river. I ate a steak alone at the hotel bar and read a book. For the first time in 2 years, I wasn't managing Sarah's anxiety, her schedule, or her need for validation. I was just Mark, and Mark was doing just fine. And I finally turned my phone back on Monday morning before work. It nearly vibrated off the desk. 47 missed calls, 82 text messages, 12 voicemails. Most were from Sarah. A few from Emily the bride, 2 from her mom. I didn't listen to the voicemails. I just scrolled through the message previews. Sarah, Sunday 1 a.m. Where are you? Sarah, Sunday 1:15 a.m. This isn't funny. Mark, where's the TV? Sarah, Sunday, 2:30 a.m. Pick up the phone. My dad is screaming at me because of what you told him. Sarah, Sunday, 9 a.m. You embarrassed me on the biggest night of my sister's life. You were so selfish. Sarah, Sunday, 4 p.m. Baby, please. I can explain. Todd just showed up. I didn't invite him. Dad lied. Sarah, Sunday, 8 p.m. The Wi-Fi is gone. Seriously, you took the router? You're so petty. Sarah, Monday, 6 a.m. Can we just talk, please? I messed up. I need you. The shift from anger to gaslighting to desperation was textbook. Almost boring. I archived the thread without responding and went to work. She showed up at 5:30 p.m. I was walking to my car in the parking garage when I saw her leaning against the driver's side door. Arms crossed, oversized sunglasses, hiding what I assumed were swollen eyes. She looked smaller than usual, defeated. But the moment she saw me, she straightened, and that familiar defensive edge returned. You blocked me, she said. No hello, no apology, just an accusation. I did, I said, stopping about 10 feet away. I didn't unlock the car. What do you want, Sarah? I want you to come home, she said, her voice cracking as she stepped toward me. This is insane. Mark, you don't just move out. You don't just disappear on someone you've lived with for 2 years over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, I repeated, letting the word sit. Is that what we're calling it? You told me your parents hated Mim. So you could bring your ex-boyfriend to a family wedding. Then you told your father I was in the hospital having a seizure to explain why I wasn't there. Which part did I misunderstand? She flinched. The seizure lie was the smoking gun, and she knew it. She looked down at the concrete floor. I panicked, she whispered. Todd texted me Friday night. He said he was going to be in town. He said he wanted to see me, to find out if there was still a spark. I just wanted closure. Mark, I needed to prove to myself that I was over him. So you brought him as your date to prove you were over him? I asked. That's an interesting strategy. It was a mistake. She cried, finally, removing the sunglasses. Her eyes were red-rimmed. He was a disaster, Mark. He got drunk. He hit on Emily's new sister-in-law. He tried to get my dad to invest in some crypto scam during the toast. My dad almost punched him. It was humiliating. Karma usually is, I said. And then he left. She continued, tears spilling over. He left with one of the bridesmaids. He didn't even say goodbye to me. He just used me to get into the open bar. She looked at me, pleading, waiting for me to do what I always did. Step in, fix everything, Tell her it wasn't her fault. Offer to make dinner. She was waiting for the contractor to come back and repair the damage. I'm sorry that happened to you, I said, but I'm not surprised. I know you were right. She sobbed, reaching for my hand. I stepped back. Her hand closed on empty air. I realized at the moment he started talking. I missed you, Mark. I missed how steady you are. I missed how safe you make me feel. Please, just come home. The apartment is so quiet without you. I can't even watch TV. Because I took the TV, I reminded her, we can buy a new TV. I don't care about the stuff. I care about us. I looked at her. Really. Looked at her. I saw the fear in her eyes. Not the fear of losing me, the man who loved her. The fear of losing the infrastructure. She was afraid of the silence in that apartment. Afraid of the bills coming due. Afraid of facing her parents alone. Sarah, I said, my voice steady. Remember what you told me Friday night? You said I was a downgrade. You said I was a downgrade. You said I was boring. I didn't mean it. Yes, you did. I couldn't, and you were right. She blinked, confused. What? I am boring compared to Todd, I said. I pay my bills. I show up on time. I don't cheat. I don't cause scenes at weddings. That's boring to people like you. You crave the highs and lows. You need chaos to feel alive. And I'm done being the safety net you fall back on when that chaos drops you. I don't want chaos, she shouted, losing control. I want you. No, I said, finally unlocking my car. The beep echoed through the garage. You want the rent paid. You want the car fixed. You want your parents off your back. You want the upgraded lifestyle without the upgraded character. I opened the door and tossed my bag onto the passenger seat. Mark, please, she whimpered, grabbing the door handle. My dad is furious. He said he's not speaking to me until I fix this. He loves you. Your dad is a good man, I said. He deserves a better son-in-law than Todd. And honestly, he deserves a better daughter than you right now. She recoiled as if I'd struck her. I'm sending movers for the rest of my furniture on Saturday, I said, getting into the driver's seat. I've already transferred the utilities out of my name. They'll shut off in 48 hours if you don't call them. Good luck with the bills, Sarah. You can't leave me, she screamed, pounding her fist against the window as I started the engine. I can't afford that place alone. You promised you'd take care of me. I rolled the window down just an inch. I did take care of you, I said. I helped you rebuild. I got you out of debt. I helped you finish your degree. You're in a better place than when I found you. I shifted the car into reverse. Consider it a severance package. I rolled the window back up. She was still shouting, maybe insults, maybe please. But the soundproofing in my car was excellent. I backed out, shifted into drive, and headed up the ramp toward the light. I glanced in the rearview mirror once. She stood alone in the dim garage, growing smaller with every yard of distance between us. I turned on the radio. A classic rock song came on. It wasn't boring. It sounded like freedom. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share your thoughts in the comments.